Hey, congregation, and welcome back to the Unveiled podcast, and also welcome to the second episode in our parenting series that I'm really excited about for the summer. You're going to love today's podcast. Our episode is going to be amazing. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to Cathy, and she told me her story, and I think you have to hear it. I immediately said, I've got to have you on the podcast. So, Cathy, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure. I'm always happy to share our story.
You're in for a treat. Welcome to the Unveiled podcast. Before we get started into your story, I would love it if you would give us a little bit of a backstory on you and how you came to FUMC New Braunfels.
Well, it's kind of a bittersweet story. First of all, I'm a music teacher, have been a music teacher for 34 years, retired 3 years ago, and sub all the time. I love it, unlike some people. We were members of Oakwood Baptist many years ago, and at the time, Stephen did not like going to the youth. He hated it, and he would cry. Did not want to be at that church with the youth. He loved the church, he loved the pastor, but not the youth. And he had friends here at FUMC, and he was going to, when Patrick had a young men's group, and they would come over from what used to be the 9th grade center down the street, and they would grab something to eat at Granzine's and then come and eat and have Bible study and stuff like that. He loved that, and he wanted to join this church because this is where he felt comfortable, and he felt the Lord was leading him, but he couldn't drive. So, with a little bit of debate, he protested, saying, you can't leave your church. You love your church. I said, I love God. I'll just worship wherever. So I started driving him here to FUMC. We joined the first week of summer many years ago. I can't remember. I think it was his freshman year, beginning of his freshman year. And he's graduated and moved on, and I've stayed. My husband still attends Oakwood. Many people might know him from around town. Lyle Clark, he owns his own business, PC Solution and TrailerAlarms.com. But he's still there. He works and does the tech stuff over at Oakwood, and I'm very happy just staying here.
Right.
Since he's busy working every Sunday doing tech stuff, I'd still be kind of a church widow. So, but this is my church family now, and so I'm still here.
Well, and I think we've talked before that, you have volunteer things that you do here, and he has his things that he does there. You both still, and they have an amazing just faith story as it is, but, when you find something that you love and really connects you with God and with the people who also love God, it works. Yeah. So what works for y'all works for y'all.
People think it's really weird that we don't go to the same church. They always give me the weird eye.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what's going on there? Nothing, just we church at two different places.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally fine. So let's get a little bit into your story.
Okay.
And I know that I'm trying to think of the perfect place to start for your story. The way that she told me this story the other day was just super impromptu and just kind of randomly we were talking and led right into it. And I was just absolutely in awe of your story, but more of God's goodness and the way that he just kind of weaves through everything and through, just years back. And so can you just start and tell us a little bit about where this story begins?
The story begins with God. God had a plan.
That's right. He always
does.
And,
hindsight 2020, but I want to say 1987 or 80. No, it was probably 1989. I had started a new career. Well, it's the same career, but a new school.
Okay.
So in 1989, I started teaching at Mountain Valley Elementary, which was in Sattler at the time. I think now it's a middle school. But at that time, it was a K through 6 school.
Okay.
And so I was teaching music K through 6 there. And the second year, I started a choir. And there was several third graders that were just amazing singers. I had other, amazing singers at the other grades too, but there were three girls in particular that were just my heart. They would come in before school, eat lunch in my room during lunchtime because I had a karaoke machine. They wanted to be on the microphone. And they would just sing all the time. And sometimes they would stay after school. They participated in anything musical that I had. And one of them, her name was Yesenia, or is, it still is Yesenia. And there was something about Yesenia that just grabbed my heart. And those of us who are teachers, we know we're not supposed to have favorite students, but sometimes there are some that just touch us in a way that we can't explain.
Yeah.
And Yesenia just touched me in a way that I loved her more than anybody else.
Yeah.
There was something about her, and the other two also, but the other two kind of fell away after 6th grade, and I stayed with Yesenia in a strange way. And after she finished 6th grade, going off to middle school, it was the summer that Circle Arts Theater was doing Annie.
Perfect.
And I was auditioning for Annie, and I said, "Oh, Yesenia, you need to audition for Annie." And she said, "I'd never make Annie." I said, "But there's orphans. You could be an orphan. We could do a show together." And I was also close with her mom and dad. Her mom was a school nurse, and just a delightful family. I just really enjoyed them. So we were all friends. She auditioned, got the role of one of the orphans, and so we did a play together. And it was no longer teacher-student. It was now two comrades in music and theater, which gave her the theater bug. And she also auditioned for the Inner Circle, which is Circle Arts repertory theater for youth. It's their youth repertory theater. It's called Inner Circle. And she made that in middle school, which most kids don't make it until high school. So then I started seeing her more and more in the youth shows, which sometimes I would help out with the music, because volunteering. And we also did other shows together. As she got older, we did more and more shows together on stage, main stage shows. So we had a friendship that was now changed.
Yeah.
It was now a little different.
Right.
And even her parents, we all four did a show together.
No way.
Her mom and dad auditioned for Rags, which was based on a story of Jewish immigrants into the United States, which was very much my family's, my dad's family were Jewish immigrants.
Yes.
So it was a very dear story for me, and I played Rebecca. My grandmother's name was Becky.
Oh my gosh, perfect.
And my great-grandfather's name was Nathan, and the husband in the show, my husband, was Nathan. I mean, it was just amazing, the things that
almost like it
clicked
was
for me.
On your family.
But Yesenia and I were in the show, and she was a teenager then, and we had this beautiful duet together. And unfortunately, she died in the show. But
the character died in the show.
Yeah, the character. But it was just a very moving show, different than, comedy.
Right.
Which, you just have fun, but it's different when you have an emotional connection.
It brings a certain, like you said, it's a different kind of thing. Comedy is almost a little easier. When you come into doing something, I mean, I did opera, and there's just always something different when it's not a comedic show. You get a little closer because you kind of have to get a little more deep and emotional, and it's easier if you become closer with the people that you're working with.
You're more vulnerable.
That's right.
During
That's
rehearsals.
Exactly right.
And you open yourself up to, in the middle of a scene, truly feeling it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you can go through it and not cry, and sometimes you're overwhelmed with it. It's like, whoa, I let my guard down.
Yes. Yes.
But, so, I mean, our relationship went just so different in those years. We became friends.
Yes.
Even though there's a large difference or big difference in our ages. So that's how I got to know her. That's kind of our relationship there.
Right. And so talk a little bit for me as we kind of transition. Obviously you went from like teacher student to friends to even more. And let's kind of get into that a little bit. because we haven't even really said what this story is really about. It's really kind of a cliffhanger as we go on.
Stay tuned.
It is so wonderful. And again, I mean, it just struck me when you told me the first time we were sitting in the office, and I think my mouth was just on the floor the whole time. It's just a beautiful story. So let's get into that part of it.
Well, to answer that question, during Yesenia's senior year of high school, she had just turned 18 in December, and I think it was the 20th, or it was between the 20th and 24th of January. She called me on the phone and said, "Hey, Cathy, can I come over? I want to talk to you about something." And so she came over, and we were sitting out on our porch, and we were just hanging out having, I don't know, lemonade or tea or something,
Mm-hmm.
and chit-chatting. And she said, "I want to talk to you about something, and it's serious." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "I'm pregnant, and I've talked to Alan, and he does not want to get married." They were both destined to go to college, and they both wanted to go to college. They did not want to be burdened with a baby, and they had discussed it. And Yesenia had shared a little bit of my story with Alan. Oh, by the way, Alan was also a former student of mine.
Oh, wow.
I taught him just
Wow.
2 years. He was also at Mountain Valley, just for a couple of years. And of course, that was up like fourth, fifth, and sixth grade.
Uh-huh.
But I was not his teacher in sixth grade because he took art and I was music.
Right, right.
But he's also a musician. Both of them are musicians.
Wow.
So anyway, they had talked, and she had shared my story a little bit, and they decided that they wanted to offer Stephen up for adoption to me and Lyle. And they did not want either of their parents, to raise the child at all. So why, you may ask? Lyle and I had gone through 11 years of infertility. And that infertility stuff started the year that I started teaching at Yesenia School. And so, we had tried to have a baby. We had gone to doctors, mainly me. And the doctors kept saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with either one of you. Keep trying." And then we saw specialists. We saw 3 specialists, again, mostly me. And after, on the 10th year, I was seeing my 3rd specialist, and he said, "Has anyone ever done an ovulation test for you?" And so in my mind, I'm thinking, for years we have dumped thousands and thousands of dollars, and I might not be ovulating.
Right.
So we did one. I was not.
That must have been, like you said, just, I'm sure you have a million things running through your mind in that moment of, okay, we've spent thousands of dollars.
Borrowed.
Sold
things.
Yes.
The up and down of the
Oh my gosh.
emotional and
yes.
the hormones and the...
For people who struggle with infertility, I'm sure they are feeling all these emotions with you. Because, like you said, personally, I do not struggle, but I've had friends and seen many people who do, and it's just an up and down roller coaster, and I can just break with you,
We would spend months saving money to go to the doctor to do the procedures.
Right.
And, we would only be able to afford maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months worth. And then, of course, they didn't work. At the time, we thought, it's going to work. It's going to work. And then that was happening year after year of this cycle of raising money or selling things or getting an extra job.
Right.
But in the meantime, I was still doing theater to keep my mind completely off of my personal struggles.
Right.
People have hobbies. My hobby was doing theater, and Circle Arts Theater is my place. It's my happy place. And I was still doing theater. And of course, Yesenia was in some of those shows. So there were even nights where I was either shut down, or you could tell that I heard, or not heard, I realized that I'm not pregnant again, but I had a show to do.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those were comedies,
Right.
but not all. But it's hard.
Yeah.
And the people in the dressing room knew.
Yes. One thing that is very common in what I have seen, doing shows and things, is you become very close with the people that, because you're spending a lot of time with them. I did summer shows when I was in high school, but then, doing shows in college, you spend long amounts of time with people, sometimes doing very emotional things and trying to get into character. You learn a lot about somebody, and they become your best friends, and they become people that you really confide in, and they know a lot. And so, especially if you are with people that you see every single night or every week, and they've seen this for you for years, they know, and you just become so close.
And for someone like me, who wears my emotions off my sleeve,
Right.
I tend to be a very jovial, joking, silly person. And when that goes away, people go, "What's wrong?" If I'm not making fun of something or being sarcastic or just making a joke about everything, or it's a song cue, everything's a song cue.
Right.
And I just come in and I'm blank.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so Yesenia was privy to, on more than one occasion, as being part of cast. So yeah, there were times that she saw
Raw.
Mm-hmm. So that comes back to when she found out that she was pregnant. She did think of me.
Yeah.
And so I told her at the time, it's like, of course I would love to say yes, but my first thought was, what's going to happen to us?
Right.
That's that could ruin our friendship. And I was very close to her family, and I thought, you want it to be an open adoption? She said, yes, we're hoping that it's an open adoption. We would all like to have access to Stephen, or at the time, the baby.
Yes.
Of course, the biggest pro is to have a baby, but there were some other cons, and we didn't know Alan's family very well. And I thought, well, we have several months to get to know them.
Right.
And to create a loving environment that can be very open, and we'll try to, even up the relationships.
Right.
We'll take that time. And so we agreed. We said yes.
I know that she came and asked you.
Maybe.
Cathy did it. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Cathy did an awesome thing. She sent me this podcast that Yesenia has done about her side of this story, which is just as equally amazing. And she talked a lot about when she came to tell you, and that is a big decision. I mean, it's a huge decision. So how long did it take for you and Lyle to come to the decision of yes?
About maybe a week and a half. And then we just kind of sat on it. And then I contacted Yesenia. It was mostly yes. But, we would talk about it, and it would become overwhelming and very emotional.
Absolutely.
By that time, especially with the last doctor who, I don't even think I said this, the last doctor that we went to, he did all these tests and stuff, and I actually could have gotten pregnant, but didn't. And he said, we can only do this 2 times. And after that, it's dangerous for you because of everything that you've gone through. And so those 2 times were over during the September show. And it was like, okay, God, I've been praying and praying and praying. Take this off my heart of wanting to be a mom. Or let there be an answer.
Yeah.
And the answer was no. And that was pretty unequivocal.
Yeah.
Because the doctor said, we can't do this anymore, and you don't ovulate on your own. So, in September, our quest was over. And then I just asked God, take this off my heart, or please help us find an answer.
Yeah.
And Lyle was of the opinion, because at that time, it broke us.
Yeah.
He said, God said, no, that's the answer. We're not going to adopt. I don't want to deal with adoption. He had some fostering in his family, and his family is a little dysfunctional, or is not now, but was at the time that he was growing up, and he has a lot of bad memories, and some of it was foster to adopt and some bad things. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that.
His heart was broken to that.
And he said, we're going to have to do something different. And so we had these few months of, I don't know, it was, we still had a good marriage, but it was odd and weird and distant.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see eye to eye. And that's when, 4 months, 5 months later, that's when Yesenia came to us. So Lyle was like, well, this is adoption.
Yeah, we already said no.
Yeah. But he said, I know these people. I really like these people. And you love these people. He, of course, was not as close as I was. And he said, the question is Alan's family. And so he said, so we need to, if we're going to do this, we've got to reach out and try to get to know them, and maybe do some dinners where we get to know the family, because they had 5 kids.
Wow. It was a big family.
Yeah.
Lots of people to get to know. Lots of personalities.
But, so we, it took us about 2 weeks. That was a long answer for the answer 2 weeks.
Oh, no, but I think it was, it's part of the story. It's part of the story. So I'm so sorry. Let's get back to, okay, you've said yes, you're going to adopt. What happens next?
Well, so they were, unfortunately, and you probably heard that in Yesenia's podcast, but Yesenia's family did not want her to stay with Alan, because Alan had already said, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want anything to do with the baby. And Yesenia was determined to stick with Alan, if at all possible. And her parents decided that she didn't need to live with them anymore. And so she moved in with Alan's family, and it was very strained, because it was, at the time, I think it was more, we are taking care of the baby maker. It was just, the whole thing was just very sad for both of the kids. Here they were, he wasn't even 18 yet, 17 and 18 years old, and
getting ready to go on to what's supposed to be this big adventure of your life, of going to college.
And this baby had ruined a lot of things, and ruined their family relationships, and ruined their personal relationships. And Yesenia was hiding it. Nobody at school knew.
I didn't hear.
Nobody knew.
I liked how she mentioned that she was in a show and she played, what was it, the piano teacher?
Yes.
So that she could
was
sit
just
behind
the pianist.
so she could sit behind. She said, I wore this big denim dress so that nobody could tell.
Yeah, she, the director of the show, Elizabeth Elliott, she was like, you're looking chubby. We need to put a cummerbund around you, and to hide that, you need to lose some weight.
Directors can be very
She was 7 months
sometimes.
pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
But but at the time of the show, I think there were only maybe 5 or 6 people who knew outside her mom and her the 2 families. So yeah, she was trying to hide it. She wanted to definitely graduate high school without anyone knowing.
Right.
And she graduated in the top 10.
I think she said she talked like top 5.
She was top 5.
Which, oh my gosh.
And she was vying for valedictorian until she got pregnant. And, obviously that was difficult to do all that she had to do and keep up her grades and the emotional and physical strains. So this spring was very difficult. We tried to get together with Alan's family. The biological grandmother, his mom's name is Cynthia. We tried to get together with her, tried to get, the family thing together, and she refused to talk to us. She didn't want anything to do with us. sadly, because we really wanted an open adoption.
Yeah.
And we thought the best thing for Stephen would be that both families would just be part of our family.
Right.
And that's the way we viewed it. And then I guess the next part of the story would be when he was born. He was born on Friday night at 9:59. It was Friday night before they had to go to orientation on Monday for college.
And he was early, right?
He was 3 weeks early. Alan was sent away during the summer to his grandparents so that he would not have any contact with us. She did not want him talking to us, but he had decided that before he was going to decide to sign over his rights, he was going to interview us. And the interview was the same day Stephen was born. During the afternoon, he interviewed Lyle.
Golly, God is amazing.
10 o'clock in the morning. He interviewed me at 1 o'clock p.m. And he decided then that, okay, yes. And he came to our home to interview me. I think he met Lyle somewhere at a restaurant or something. But he came to our home and he saw the setup that we had. And I explained, I said, we don't know. You have not given us permission to have this baby. So we have things ready, but we are not completely ready because I don't want to be completely ready for a baby that's not going to come.
Right. Getting a nursery ready is emotional. It's already an attachment thing. And so finishing that nursery, that's kind of...
We had a baby bed.
Yes.
And we had... I think that's it.
Yeah.
We had a baby bed. And then... I don't remember what else we had, but we were trying our best to just like pretend it's not happening
until it happens.
I just like...
Yeah.
So we had 3 more weeks.
Yeah, you could get all that stuff in that amount of time.
So he interviewed us that Friday morning and afternoon, and then he said, okay, I approve of you. You may adopt the baby when it's born. And that night he was delivered at home. Joan, Yesenia's mom, is a labor and delivery nurse.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yesenia, they called the ambulance. They lived way out Canyon Lake, Timbuktu, and the ambulance said, well, first baby, it'll take a while. Nope.
Oh my gosh.
So she delivered her own grandson. Joan did. And
what a cool
her little
story.
brother helped.
Yes.
Here's towels. Her little brother's like a couple of years younger than she. And so he was born, and then the ambulance came and took him both to the hospital. We got a phone call the next day, and I was at a meeting for Circle Arts Theater. I was at a meeting. I was on the board at the time. I was at a meeting at Circle Arts Theater, and Lyle was up in Dallas with my parents. Who knows? I don't know. I can't remember what he was there for, but he had gone to Dallas and was at Fry's Electronics.
Oh my gosh.
When they got a phone call, I got the phone call, and I was laughing and crying at the same time, and nobody could figure out what was going on.
Oh my gosh.
Because I was just on an emotional whirlwind.
Yeah.
And literally screaming and laughing and crying at the same time. What's going on, Cathy? And at the time, I was pumping because my doctor had said, well, if you spend plenty of time doing this, this, and this, you might be able to lactate and you could nurse them, and that would be a bond that you could have.
Right.
Well, I was in the middle of doing that. So I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I'm connected.
Yes.
And I'm going, wah! And of course people are going, what? I'm like, don't come in. Just like,
yes.
I'm trying to, it's like, he's born, he's here. What? It's like, the baby's here.
Oh my
I was like, what? It's like, I gotta go to the hospital. What do I do?
Oh
and
goodness.
Everyone just stopped. And I think some people were praying. Some people were calling other people. Somebody has to drive Cathy to the hospital because she can't drive. And then I called Lyle. He's here. I think Lyle made it from Dallas to San Antonio in 3 hours. Don't tell the cops. But he was like,
oh,
I'm on my way. And so we went to the hospital. That was Saturday morning, afternoon. And we got to hold him. And unfortunately, Cynthia refused to talk to us. And that's when it started with them that she would only let the oldest child, aside from Ellen. Ellen was already gone. Ellen wanted nothing to do with it, but the oldest daughter was her go-between.
Like the middleman.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she came and made all the demands and stuff. Mom wants this, and it was very cold and sad there. And Sunday morning, we were just waiting for them to call us to come pick the baby up.
Mm-hmm.
We were at church, and of course,
Oh,
the
cool.
church that we were at the time, God bless them, they just showered us and prayed over us, and they had gone through all of the infertility.
Absolutely.
They were right there with us, and they knew that we would be getting a phone call sometime Sunday, and we didn't know what it was going to be. And we said, we're going to leave our phone on because it might be during church. And sure enough, the phone rang, and everyone it was middle, I don't know what we were doing, singing a song. He was preaching. I don't know what what was happening in church, but the whole church burst out in hallelujah. And
oh my gosh,
we just
goosebumps.
cried, and we said, bye, we're getting a baby.
Yes.
And we
see you later.
We went to pick up the baby on Sunday morning, and my parents, of course, they knew that he was born and they were going to be there Sunday. So they were on their way Sunday to our house. And so everything just happened. And when God has a plan, y'all, and you don't know what it is,
yes,
watch out.
Yes.
To think that little girl who was so special.
Yes.
And there was something special about her. And she was going to be the mother of our child.
Isn't that it's just amazing. You can go back so far to say there was a reason that this child was so special. There was a reason that I was at this school. There was a reason this and this, and it all led you to this amazing story that God perfectly wrote out.
Yeah.
It's just, I have goosebumps. It's just so amazing.
It truly is.
Yes.
And it's not our story, it's God's story.
That's right. That's God's story. I do have kind of a side question. Did you name Stephen, or did Yesenia name Stephen, or did you do it together?
Good question. Okay, so at the hospital, of course, you're supposed to name the baby.
Right.
And so Alan, who was there, we didn't talk to him, although I did grab him at one time because of the name thing. But when we were at the hospital, Alan wanted to give him the name Leo, which was his father's name, who had passed.
Okay.
And then Yesenia was going to give him a name. We were going to give him a name, and then he was going to have Alan's last name. So it was, we were trying to figure that out. And so I think it was going to be Leo McNett Cote, which would have been his dad's name, her last name, his last name. And I took Alan aside. I got him away. I don't know how I got him away, but I took him aside. I said, you don't want to give this child your father's name, because later on in life, if you do have a son that you're going to raise, you want to have your son that you're going to raise, you want to give him your father's name.
Yeah.
Don't throw this name away because we're going to rename him.
What did he say?
He said, thank you.
What an amazing
thought about it.
From you, the forethought. I would never have even thought, especially with all of the emotional chaos, good and bad, that's happening during an adoption from all parties. I would have never thought about that. So what an amazing thought from you to ask of him or to tell him, because he may have, in the future had a baby that he wanted to name that. And what would it have looked like then?
And the name would have been thrown away as soon as we adopted him.
Right.
So we gave him the first name. So he had Stephen, and then her last name, McNett, and then Cote, his last name. And so that was on the birth certificate, the original one.
Right.
And then later on, when we were able to adopt him, we gave him the name Stephen, named after my husband Lyle's uncle, who was very, very important to his being raised. And then my dad's name, Paul,
Mhm.
and then of course our last name, Clark.
That is so cool. So I don't think I knew that when you adopt, like from the hospital, let's say the adoption is known, it's happening, that they actually have almost two names because they've got a birth certificate and then you have to then adopt and do another. I don't think I knew that.
And we had 5 birth certificates because I kept messing up the birth
Wow.
certificate. Sorry, Comal County.
There is so much more to this story, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear it, but you're gonna have to wait for our part 2, which will be coming out soon. Cathy, thank you. I cannot wait for part 2.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I
Absolutely.
love sharing my story.
Well, you do a really
And I
good job
hope
of it.
I hope it blesses you.
It will. Thank you so much for watching the Unveiled podcast. We'll see you for part 2 next week.